What is going on, everybody? We are back to this tutorial. It is never ending, but we have to keep our heads high because we have a decent amount of way to go. Just want to say that once we get to I'm still trying to figure out how I want to even tackle the lips, to be honest with you. There's just so much going on. I don't know if I want to do a base layer and then like individually draw all these cracks and like do all these pop outs here, and I just really don't know. It's very complex, and it's gonna be, oh geez. Alright, anyway, I mean, besides that, I'm just thinking about these highlights on the lips, and I just don't know if I want to draw them with shapes or if I want to draw them just like as general mesh highlights and then draw the cracks over it. You can also, if you wanted to, with mesh, if you added like a ton of points, like an obsessively amount of points, especially on this top lip, maybe not on this bottom one, or maybe part of the bottom one, but you can get really fine nitty-gritty like detail, and maybe we need to do that with the lips. So we'll give a few tries to the lips in the future. But all right, anyway, besides talking about the lips, we are not even doing that yet. We are doing the eyelashes and the finer detail of the eye. So we have to hide this, and we're gonna hide this too, so we can see what we have to do. And this is gonna be very soft, but I'm just gonna take my pencil tool because, again, this is like so blurred out in the background that I don't want to be like too detailed with this shape. But I'm gonna make a few different shapes here. All right, so I pretty much like that, and I'm gonna color it like that, pretty much. All right, so then I'm gonna do a few more. I kind of see maybe a shape like this right here, and then we have, you know, I want to just draw them really quickly because they're just so crude in the background, and I feel like the less time I spend worrying about tips and turns of the shape, the more realistic it's going to look anyway. So pretty much that's what I think I see, and I'm going to take all these shapes that I have, and I'm going to color them the same, just not this one. And then I'm going to group them so they all get affected equally, because I'm going to add effects. So let me show everything, and that's what I have right now without any opacity or any effects on it. What did I put as the opacity on this guy? Let's unlock these layers. This I put at 35% opacity. So let's see what that looks like over here. Looks pretty good. I actually think I want more, 45 maybe. 45% looks good to me. And I think I want to do some sort of feather here. Four pixels, maybe less. I can't really see a lot of that. Maybe 2. Yeah, 2 is better. So that is looking pretty stylish in there. Let me hide these shapes again, and I'm just gonna do basically what I did over here with one color, and then I'm gonna make it really soft because it's almost impossible to see. It almost just looks like a ring of color, and I'm pretty much just gonna try and make a perfect ring with these lines. So I'm gonna add a bunch of line segments. Actually, I'm gonna bring this tone over here. I'm gonna take this line segment, and I'm going to make a bunch of these in a circle. Alright, so I think that is enough. If I'm going to do anything else, I might take this black tone, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm just going to match it to this and just make it slightly darker like that. Not quite as dark as before, but I do think I just need a few more line segments, you know, in this area over here. And when I drop the opacity, it's going to be really hard to see these black ones, which is kind of what I want, but I do want just a little bit of detail in here. Alright, so I'm going to take those and I'm going to group them. I'm actually going to just move these to the side here. I don't want them in the way. And I am going to lower the opacity of these lines so I can get a better blend on the color. Oh. I actually was drawing it on the wrong layer. Look at that. Alright, so even right when I added it back, I even think that made it look a little bit better than I had it. You know, if I hide these lines, I think with the lines it already looks better. I think I can leave it at 50%. Kind of liking that. It's supposed to be subtle anyway, so I can't really see it in the picture, but I do see something when I go a little closer, so that's for someone who looks and takes the extra mile into the drawing when they are examining something. You know, I want there to be detail that really, you know, if you go up close, it still looks just so surreal, and that's why when you zoom out, it even looks that much better, is these small details. Alright, so the only thing we're missing, I would say, is eyelashes. So I'm going to start drawing the eyelashes. I'm going to do it the same way I did the other layer. I'm just going to simply take my pen tool and, you know, before I even do that, I'm going to hide all this. Let me just put it in outline mode so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to group all of these just so I don't lose them, because I find that I forget where the placement of these are because they're feathered and I can't really see them too well when I'm working. So I think they should just all be grouped to each other so I don't lose them, and if I move one, I move them all so I could see it better. Plus it'll just make it easier to edit anything in the future. If I could just select all of them at once and just bring them to the front or something, definitely makes life a lot nicer. Very nice touch though with those little dots. Okay, so time to draw the eyelashes. So let me hide all this stuff, and then let me hide this. Nope, I'm gonna hide that. And yep, I'm just gonna take my pen tool. So let's get right to it. Let's find the shapes that I want to draw, and let's get drawing. So I see I made a mistake there. I want to draw even taller. Like the eyelashes actually come up to about here, and I was only drawing them to about this line when they should be up here. So let me undo and then fix the height. And we're gonna feather this later, so we'll get that soft edge where they kind of fade with the background and they lose their like density and their blackness. So I undid that because I realized there was really just a break in color there, and I wanted to separate that shape as well as its own color and shape. I think it's a different color than this, and I just need it separated. So I undid that, if that's what you just saw. And we're almost finished drawing the first or second shape, I guess, of the eyelashes. So we're just gonna go, and this shape is going to be over the eye. It's going to be on top of the eye. It's not going to be sent to back. We're going to keep it at the front. Alright, so that's what that looks like right now. I would say it needs a little work. Possibly matching the opacity, first of all, of this. Actually, let me take this eyelash and make it a graphic style. Let's apply that to this. That's a little bit better. I'm gonna feather this more than the graphic style was. See what happens. I like that more. Alright, let me just draw a few more shapes. Let me go back and hide the layers I don't need to see right now. And we're going to continue drawing our I'm gonna make this one a graphic style too, and then delete the old one because I just like the new one that I've created more, so I don't even want to keep the old one. At least for this side. I don't really need it for this side anymore. Let's see what I have here. Let's bring everything back. I'm gonna feather this guy more, maybe drop its opacity like by another 15%. And then take this guy, go to my appearance tab. Yeah, that looks much better. Alright everybody, so there we go. I mean, that's pretty much both of our eyes. I mean, now we have a fairly realistic looking drawing. And it really just stands out now that we can see just both eyes just kind of looking into the camera. It just adds so much more realism into what we're presenting here. And even without the lips and the ears and the hair, we are well on our way to having a successful drawing here. And I believe the next thing I want to do, I don't even want to go into the lips yet. I just want a little more buffer time with the lips. I still eventually have to fix this line here on this nose. It's just a little too hard right here. I'm just staring at it now ever since I realized it. But besides that, we need to move on. I'm gonna do the ear. I'm gonna get the ear done. I think it's an important piece to solidifying more than just what we're looking at. And plus, it's gonna be a pretty easy draw, and it's kind of fun to draw based on what I'm looking at. So let's open up a new layer. Let's get right into the drawing of the ear. Alright, so like always, we're going to start with a white square. We're not going to start with a circle in this case, only because our shape really isn't very circular. It is round, but it's really, we could adjust it based off the square pretty much, I think, easier than we can with this, the circle. So I'm going to turn my square just like that to follow basically the general trend of the ear and the way the light and color move, as well as the angle just of the ear itself. And I'm going to hit click on the eyeball on the layer menu so I can open up outline specifically just for this layer. And now what we have to do is we have to identify our mid, left, bottom, and right points, as well as our corner points, so we can manipulate this square to make this square appear as our ear and our gradient mesh that we will color later. So this point will go all the way to the edge here, and that's going to be our left center, because that's our left center of our square, and that is going to be our left center of our ear. And our right center of our square is going to be our right center of our ear. So we do that, and then we have the mid point, bottom center, bottom left point, top left point, and then we have top right point that's going to be lost behind the face layer anyway, so we don't really have to worry too much about that. And finally, our top center point. We're going to just do a quick adjustment to our Bezier curves so we can completely frame the ear properly. Alright, so now that we have our ear framed and shaped, let me just fix this point actually right here. This one's a little messed up. Take my carrot here. Okay, so now we have our ear framed and ready to go to build the mesh. The first thing I notice, and the only thing I notice specifically on the edge, is I see like the little curve of the ear right here. So I want to just make sure I draw that. So I'm going to take that point, add that point there, and I don't want to move my midpoint. I'm going to add another point because I need to. So this one needs to go up. Then we got to take this guy, go like that, and this one can now come in and be a bend. And that's how we do that. We don't want to move the midpoint. Create new points around the midpoint. Alright, so we can leave those 2 points there, that's fine. So we could take the ear at a few angles at first, whatever really you want as a way to start. I think just to start over here with the shadow. So the first thing I see to start that shadow is I want to create a point right here, because this is going to allow me to place a point right at a barrier or edge line of that shape. So now this point right here becomes my bottom. And now I can create a top point, just like this. So now we are starting to box in our shadow. Okay, so what do we do next? We keep going down. We're gonna keep following this line, and looks like we're gonna have to move this stuff down actually, just a little bit. All right, so now that we did that, let me just add a point right on this line so I can bring it down. And we can do a bunch of shifting. This guy's got to follow the bottom line. See, it's on this bottom edge. Okay, and we're just going to keep working this edge of the shadow all the way around until we box it in completely. Let's add a point right here. Okay, now we have this bottom edge. We're going to follow this edge. So see how this point is on this edge? We need to keep it going on that edge. Okay, bring it down like this. Keep everything organized like this. Make sure everything is linear. We don't want that weird bend we just saw before. If I undo, that's that weird bend. We want to keep it pretty straight with the point that it's attached to. Okay, so this one can come down just like that. Alright, so we're certainly getting there. I'm going to put a left barrier edge right here. And then I can then fix the rest of my points, because I have enough points now to fix the rest of the edge. And you can hopefully see what we're doing. We are boxing in this shadow. Or I like to call it capturing or defining. We are choosing what we want to see, and we are capturing it by boxing it in and allowing our points to frame what we see in the drawing. Or in other words, what we need to see. Okay, so this point has got to come all the way down because that is a topmost edge of this shadow. Alright, so I don't want to break my midpoint off, but what I need to do is I need to add another point down here so I can't move this one down. I don't want to move this one down. I want to keep that consistent and add a new point for my midpoint. Alright, so we have a little bit of an interesting issue with this. If I move this point over here and make this an edge, it kind of has a weird... Alright, so you see what we're doing here? Let's continue. Alright, so I want to box this off because this ends about right here, and it looks like a pretty sharp ending, so I think that is a nice closure to that shape here. And I've went over this a bunch of times, but I'm pretty much just going to go over it, I guess, every time. Now that we have this shape boxed in, and we have it here, look, we have this whole hollow point where we have all this color left to be filled. the only way to be able to show that and be able to present that in your drawing is we need to create a point in the middle. And if you don't have one down here, we need another one down here. Look, we need to create points inside that mesh so we can click that point, fill that color inside the middle of that shape. And what the color is then going to do is travel to each end and each point that it is around. And then it will be stopped at the edge that we have boxed in now. So that color, this darkness, will be stopped at this edge, and that's exactly how it's going to show, and that's what it looks like. The shadow is boxed in by this weird shape, you know, from the crevice in the ear, and the only way to show that is to close it in, to fill it in, and then so the color does not spread and gradate. You know, it doesn't, the gradient mesh doesn't take the color and push it out all over here. So I'm just going to make sure this is a little bit more organized. It looks like it was going off the path a little bit, so I'm just going to straighten it out, make it a little bit more symmetrical and even with our other lines, trying to make it about the same distance between each point to the best of my ability in certain areas. The ear is a pretty smooth gradient, but we do want to have enough detail where we can see the ins and outs of the ear. Like all these highlights are going to make the ear look like it has dimension, and we really need that to be drawn. Alright, so now that we have points inside of our box, the only way to make sure that our box color will not spread outward into the rest of the ear. So if I were to leave it like this, if I took this point and colored it like whatever color here, dark, this darkness, if I were to leave it, this darkness is going to spread all over here and all over here because it is going all out inside of, you know, it's going in every direction inside this box here. This point is boxed in around these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. And then if we were to color this with darkness, it will go outward into those 8 points. And if I do that, then I have bad coloring over here. So the key to making sure our box colors are going to stay within their box, we're going to create a line and barrier off the shape that we have created. So look, this one's got to come down, and we're creating a wall. We're blocking it in. Everything gets blocked in. It's a separate area, so it needs to be separately defined. So we want to take our time with this because the ear is actually pretty complex, but it's not going to be that hard of a draw. We just want to make sure we're staying on top of the curves of the ear. Keeping everything pretty smooth is key. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more detailed. We're not done yet though. We have to go all around this thing. So we need a box right here. And I also need a point for this little black, this little brown shadow here between this darkness and this darkness. There's this mid black tone that's darker than this spot, and it's darker than this spot, but it's not darker than this spot or this spot. So I need a point there. And I especially need a point there because I need to box this in. And I'm gonna need to box this shape in too. So we definitely need a point there. I'm gonna put a point up there because we need to box this part in. Definitely need that. And we need to keep going around. So now we have officially trapped our shape perfectly inside of a container, and we will get the results that we are looking for with that mesh. And it's gonna be a little bit messy when we first color it, but the key is to then do the technique, the left, left, right, right, up, down technique with the selection tool on the eyedropper to blend all of our colors together. And that's what will make this ear come alive. So now that we have that first shape done, I might as well go to this shape next. So let's go into this shape right here. It's pretty much almost set up for us because the more we draw the ear, the more it's, especially the more we draw the ear correctly, the more it's gonna set us up in the future for the other parts of the ear to flow properly, and the mesh will kind of make itself. So the better you're doing, the easier mesh becomes because it kind of just works that way. So I see the shape here. I need a corner point that starts about here. I see like a little corner here and a corner here, but I don't want to take these points that I've made here because this is my transition color points. So I need to take the gradient mesh tool and add another point in the corner there to start off my shape. And now this line is now becoming my boundary to this shape here. So now I'm going to start boxing in. I'm going to start boxing in that color. Okay, so this line stays at the top, follow the top. Okay, so now I don't want to make these points the edge over here. I don't want to make that the boundary. I'm going to make a new point for the boundary, and then I'm going to start bringing all these points in and closing it off. And that's more or less looking the way we want it to. Alright, the perspective grid is on for some reason. Let me turn this thing off. I don't know how or why that came about. Oh, I probably clicked it because of the gradient mesh tool being right next to it. Alright, anyway, so we're almost done with that shape, but again, we cannot forget we have to box this color in. It's the only way to make sure we have that kind of nice change in color between this and this high, you know, like this dark tone and this darker tone and this light tone. But it's not too harsh of a change. Like when we were working with like parts like this needs to be a little bit harsher of a change than this. We still have a decent amount of change happening pretty fast, but it's not too fast where we want it to be too tight. So I want to leave a little breathing room for this box. So I actually like this point right here as a breathing room box. I don't have any points over here, and I do need one. Plus, I see this kind of like this shape right here. We want to make sure we get that shape too. So I think we need a point right there in the center of that color, because we're going to set ourselves up for a little bit in the future. Not to mention, what we need to do is, all I'm going to do is just shift these points over, because I just feel like there's more of a trend of the color moving to the left, shifting to the left, and I need it to kind of happen. So I need to move these points because I need the curves to move to the left. Alright, so now that I'm done with that line, I'm going to move on to my next line. So this is my middle of this shape and this color, so I'm going to make a edge line of this color as well as this color, and that is going to go right there. So now this is going to be my edge of these shapes, like this. You see this? It's still my midpoint. I didn't move it too much, but I do need to move it a little bit to get this happening. Alright, so we're going to keep moving on. So we're going to leave these points right where they are. I think those are fine. We don't need to get too detailed in there. But I do need an edge barrier over here. And so I can move these points in like this. I can then bring these down. This guy's got to go actually like that. Maybe not. This one's got to go like this. Maybe not. Alright, so you can see what we're doing here, right? We are consistently building each shadow we see. I'm actually just going to add one more point in here. I just feel like we need another one. Just seems a little bit too smooth. I want there to be a little bit more color change in there from this point to this point. So that extra point I think will do it. So we're really getting there. We're almost done. I'm going to add 1 point. Let's see. Right here. Because I need a point to kind of cover this spot right here. Because I have this nice change between light and dark. And then I definitely need a point here to box this shape in. And I definitely need a point here to transition from here to here. So that's looking pretty good. I'm not going to get too into what shadows are right here, but I do want to make sure I get the shadow. So I'm going to put a point right in the center of this center block, right in the center of the shadow. And that should do just fine right there. I'm going to add a point here to block this shadow from spreading all the way up here, because this is a lighter tan in between there. Let's see what else I need. I'm going to move this point right here so I can get that little shadow. Shift everything over a little bit. Okay, so the only thing I think I care about adding right now is just these rings of color towards the edge. We kind of see go from pink to an orange to a dark orange, dark brown to a black. So we need to make sure we kind of capture that happening at the edge where the light kind of fades off the ear. So the best way to do that is find where it degrades out. So it degrades all the way out to about, I'd say, this point here. So our start is going to be right there, because then we could take this point and this point, and kind of just squeeze it like that, and the edge will kind of just do what it's meant to do and just kind of close it out. Alright, so now we have that line. That line is going to follow as far as it can, and it looks like it's going to stop about right here. Just want to make sure this line is fine. I'm going to just move it like that. That's fine for now. So we're going to need more points. So in order for this to work, we're just going to need to add a point right on the line. And then we're going to have to bring this guy right here, this new line, we're going to have to bring this guy down. And we want to make sure, see how we're going too far to the right? Bring these points in like this. Bring them a little closer to their connector points. We're going to acknowledge what we're doing to our curves too at the same time. We're not going to forget about them. Constantly fixing our Bezier curves. Alright, so I just want to acknowledge the fact that I'm moving this point up right here because eventually when we get to this side of the ear, this line that is new kind of goes into our bounding box that we've created ourselves before for this shape, and we don't want to mess it up. So I want to just make sure I'm consistently fixing that structure, and I replaced a point that is now being pulled down as the point that is the bounding box, because that is how it really worked out. It's how the mesh kind of constructed itself. So I need to allow it to do that so I can fix it, so then the color will move in the right way. And for whatever reason, this point up here, I don't know why this happened, but I wasn't watching at some point. But I just want to make sure it rounds off and just stays consistent with the bend of our shape, or else we're going to see that little peak shadow, little peak point, or whatever it is, indent in the curve. Alright, so it's looking good. It's looking good. We're still going. We just need to wrap all the way about to here, I'd say. So we're going to add a point here, and now we can continue to follow that path. Okay, so I think for our first line on the edge that works really well because it captures that orange line and then it kind of degrades and fades out into the rest of the ear naturally. So I think that is cool right there. What I do need now is another stage of shade. So I need to have a line in between all of this. I need to have a transitioning between that light orange into this dark orange, and from this dark orange into the edge of the darkness edge of the black. So that is the reason for this point right here. We need to fill in that color between the black of the ears and the light orange of the ears right here, because there is a trend of color that changes, you know, it's not consistent. So it seems like we're good all the way up until I'd say over here we need another point, and this one needs to keep following the bend. Alright, so I think the only thing missing now is actually a point here, because I have nothing defining this light, like high point of the ear, this light tone versus this dark tone. And if I didn't have this point, this dark tone would be transferring between this to this pink, and then I would lose all of this. So I definitely want a point in there to capture that color. Let's see, I definitely want a point here because I'm losing all that shading here and all up in here. I think that's fine. I don't need to necessarily capture this whole bend of I mean, maybe I do a little bit. Let's see. No. Yeah, I am gonna capture this bend. Just gonna add a point here. Then I can add another point. Let's see. Here. Alright, so I think I am gonna capture this bend. I just need to shift this in, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do this. I'm not going to really mess anything up. I'm just moving points that already work over. Alright, so I just messed up some of these points and I'm going to fix them, but before I do that, I'm going to close out this episode because this one's been running a little bit, and I definitely want to divide this episode between the eye and the ear a little bit. So I appreciate everyone for sticking it out this long. We are on episode 26, going on episode 27. My name is Mark DiMattei. You can find me on Instagram at markedarts, that's MARKD_ARTS. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing or not. Please let me know in a like or a comment or a dislike or a subscribe, possibly. I don't know. It might help me. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.